Welcome back to the Sustainable Creator Podcast. Today, we are talking about the 3P decision-making framework.
So this is something that's come up a couple times with us recently, both in how we make decisions, but also in a couple coaching conversations recently where we've talked about like they're in the process of making a pretty big decision that would affect their life and their business. And how do you put that into context of what should I be taking into consideration or evaluating in the process of making this decision? And so a way that we have simplified that down, for us at least, is we think about a triangle or passion, profit, and purpose. And how do you think about balancing those three things when you're pursuing a new offer, when you're going in a new direction in business, when you're thinking about things? So quickly, before we get into a couple of examples of what that could look like when one of those is out of alignment, some definitions. So passion, we like to think about that as like, what are the things that put you into a flow state? Another term to use, like flow state is a common thing that people talk about, like when you are working on something and you lose track of time, or you really enjoy doing it, or you could do it forever without getting tired, or when you end doing that thing, you have more energy than when you started. That's a flow state where you really enjoy doing the thing. Your passions coincide with the things that put you into flow state. You really enjoy doing them, and in this triangle, at least, we think about those a little bit more short term. Your purpose is more like big picture. What's the impact you want to have on the world? What are the things that you would love to see said in your eulogy one day? What are the things that like truly keep you going for a long time? If you think about long distance athletes, they tap into some reserve that just allows them to keep going and going because they have a purpose that is bigger than themselves, that they're tapped into, and they just love doing that thing. That's your purpose. Profit, I mean, this is a pretty straightforward one. Like, are you getting paid? Are you making enough money for what you're doing? Are you being paid the value that you think you're worth for the things that you're doing? And that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. But when you think about this triangle, you have to define for yourself, what are your passions, what are your purposes, and what is the profit that you're looking for in every decision you go into, because they will be different in different things. So if we put this in a little bit more tangible, what is an example across us and clients that we've worked with of these things being out of alignment?
Yeah, so we have an example for each part of this triangle or framework for you. We'll start with passion. We worked with a coaching client earlier this year who was more on a generalist, or seen more as a generalist with the offers that she had at the time we started working together. And it was not lighting her up. She knew she wanted to switch things around, shift into a role that she was really excited about delivering on, and that matched her expertise level, which would also mean that she would be able to charge higher rates. But we were also focused around what was she passionate about so that everything could be in alignment for her. So where she was offering a generalist retainer before, it was making money, it was selling consistently, but she was doing a decent number of things within that she wasn't very passionate about. After working together, what we worked on was creating a more specialized offer that she was excited about. It was more of a one-off build structure that then led into a higher priced ongoing retainer. So the profit was also there, but the passion needed to be in the middle in order to fuel the profits. And once we worked on that with her, things started to really move and groove and feel much more in alignment for her overall. And she messaged us after her coaching package ended, like a month or two later, still with wins that she was seeing from the work that we did together, which is always really encouraging to hear. So that's an example on the passion front.
So if I dig deep and go a few years back, roughly 5 years ago, I was still working in corporate. We're coming up on 5 years of working together. And I took a position at a company when I came out of grad school because I thought the job description sounded really interesting. And like, I got a master's in business and a master's in data analytics, and I got a job that sat in the middle of those two things at a big company. And the work was really interesting for me. I was very well compensated and I enjoyed those things. But a couple months in, I realized that like, this does not fit my big purpose. I was working at a pharmaceutical company, and I don't think I had ever seen on my vision board that I want to sell drugs. Like, that was not like a life fulfilling purpose. And we got to the point of like, we were on a project that was pretty demanding, and I didn't have that thing to dig deep, to keep going, to sit on calls at 5 a.m. with Australia because that's where our other team members were. And it just started getting to the point of like, while I was passionate about some of the things and the profit was there, like the triangle was out of balance, which led to me burning out a lot faster because I was out of balance. And when we started evaluating some of these things, it was the little bit that I would sometimes work with Joelle's clients that really filled the purpose bucket and some of those passion and profit things. And when I compared triangles, that one was balanced and the one I was in was not balanced. And so I made a decision to leave that to the thing that would rebalance the three parts of the triangle.
Yeah. So the purpose looks so different for everyone. And that's the thing with all of these, like it's going to be individually focused. But that's a great example on the purpose front. And then when we move into profit, I'll give you another client example for this. And this has applied to numerous of our coaching clients and members inside of the break room, shameless plug. However, if I'm thinking about one in particular, when we started working with her, she was really at capacity with how much she could take on work-wise. She runs a web design, does web design, and she's fantastic. And she was at capacity with how much she could deliver, and she needed to increase her prices. And so what we worked on with her was what needs to shift so that that pricing feels good for the value that she was delivering. And it was also like the math matched. So she also understood that there was a numbers did not lie that supported her nudge on wanting to raise her rates. And so we not only worked with her on raising her rates, we also worked with her on refining her offers and her processes and her delivery. And that all coincided very nicely into more premium offers and pricing that made a really big difference for her on the profit front. And she went on to work with some more high level clients to make some big moves in her business and feel far more aligned overall. And it has been really cool to see that growth happen. And this, we've seen it over and over, this framework, in numerous business owners, businesses, and it's going to look different in each season with each offer. But anytime you start to feel like something is a little bit off, or you're starting to feel friction in an area, you begin to feel like you need something more, that means something is out of alignment. And using this framework is a really helpful benchmark to test and see which area you need to focus on first. Sometimes there might be two that you need to focus on, but one is probably going to be a higher priority. So
I think the thing that I'll possibly add is like, as you look across like the examples that we just used, like the friction point was in one area, the solution was a little bit bigger, but in making the like diagnostic approach of what's wrong, why am I out of alignment, there is a portion of the triangle that is the biggest burning fire. Mm-hmm. And then you can make the plan work backwards from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if we were to give you guys some next steps on some journal prompts, we love good journal prompts and next steps. That's very common when you work with us. But what I want you to do is write down anything that is out of alignment for you. Was there one of the 3 Ps that jumped out at you when we were talking about it, you immediately knew, or you felt like it was worth exploring? Once again, the 3 Ps are passion, purpose, and profit. So write down the one that feels most out of alignment for you. Then think about, is there anything that you can change with the current friction that you are feeling? And what is that? Get very tangible about it. Sometimes it might be a conversation that needs to happen. Maybe you need to raise your rates. Maybe you need to do something else. You probably already know what it is, and now you just need to follow through on it. And then the third thing is asking the question, what can you put into place to balance the next time around? So with anything, you can always learn better for the future. And when we encounter scenarios like this, growth seasons, things that are out of alignment, it's a great opportunity to assess what needs to change, not just now, but also to set you up for more success and fulfillment in the future. So That's a great question to end on as well.
I think the last part is oftentimes having someone else that has an external perspective becomes really valuable. That could
Mhm.
be a coach like us. That could also be a friend that knows you well, or someone that has oftentimes, like, your customers will even point this out to you of like, hey, this didn't necessarily go exactly how you thought it would. And like some of those conversations can be super valuable because, as the saying goes, it's really hard to read the label from inside the bottle.
Mhm.
So asking someone else about this, even if you are just feeling the inkling of friction, asking someone else their perspective of what you're going through, if they have context, can go a really long ways to help you make that decision.
Yeah.
If you are looking for that support, we are taking on a couple coaching clients this month. You can schedule a discovery call down in the description below if you want to know more about that.
Yeah, we would love to work with you. Otherwise, excited to hear how you guys put this framework to use. Like, if something stood out to you from this framework, you already have a takeaway, please share it with us. We love hearing about how these episodes impact you. So send us a DM on Instagram at Joe and Linden and let us know what your biggest takeaway from today's episode was. And if you do want to know more about coaching, like Linden said, there is a link in the description for you to click, learn all the details, and schedule a discovery call. We can always talk more about what is involved and how we can best support you in your business. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next week and hope you have a great day. Okay, bye.